The Delta 2023 governorship elections will take place on the 11th day of March of 2023 to elect the governor of Delta State, concurrent with the elections to the Delta State House of Assembly. The elections will be held 2 weeks after the presidential and National Assembly elections. Why the Delta State election will be keenly watched is not just because of its strategic role it plays in the Niger Delta region, but because of how significant the state is to the nation's wealth, with its rich deposit of hydrocarbon, which is the mainstay of the nation's economy. So having the right person to govern the state in the next 4 years is highly needed, not just to help stabilize the politics and development of the state, but also the nation as a whole has a need to getting it right and electing the right person to do the job. A person that has the pure passion to develop the state's infrastructure, health and educational sector, human capital potential, and bring in the much needed foreign investment that the state has lost over the years. But the person that is also mindful of the great environmental and ecological problems that the big heart is facing. Hence, a need for this edition of The Big Story. And that's what we're talking about, Delta 2023, A Time to Serve. And that's what we're having as a major discourse today on The Big Story. We're talking about Delta 2023, and indeed a time to serve. And who better to help talk about this other than a man that has the passion and knowledge to serve his people? Well, they call him Mr., but rather I'll call him Comrade because of his well-known human and environmental activism. And I'm talking of no other person but Comrade Sunny Ofehe. He is the governorship candidate of the Young Progressives Party for the 2023 Delta State Governorship election. Good morning and welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
Well, indeed, a nice one to have you. Yeah. And I do know it has been a very busy week for you.
Yes, it has
been. With your Monday visit of His Royal Majesty, Ogiame Atuashe III, the Olu of Warri, where you talked about a great deal and a need for more foreign investment in the state. That I know. But first, we really want to know your ideology and understand why your desire and passion to really serve your people. So we really want to start off with that, to know your ideology and the reason you are putting yourself forward to indeed serve your people.
Well, it's an honor and privilege to be here, and it is also very ironical to see that this interview is taking place here in Ughelli, where I actually grew up.
Wow, that's interesting to know.
Yes, whoever I have become today internationally, I owe it to my childhood days growing up in this wonderful and fantastic city.
Oh, nice to hear.
I spent the first 23 years of my age, growing up in Nigeria. So I attended primary school, Ogele Primary School, Ughelli. I attended Unity School, Agbaro, and then eventually went on to attend the University of Benin, Benin City. I left this country on the 26th of November, 1995. Yes. I played an active role in the June 12th presidential election that was annulled by the military junta of first Babangida, and then it led up to Abacha. I left Nigeria, like I said, 26th of November. My mom, sold our house, and we gave me the money, the major part of the money, sold it for 500,000 naira at the time, gave me 475,000 naira. So I went to Kano, and when I got to Kano, the connection that I was going to use to leave the country had collapsed. Wow. So I stayed in Kano for 6 months. Wow. Every monies that I had as BTA, basic travel allowance, got exhausted. So the only thing I was holding on the 26th, the night I eventually left, was just my ticket, yes. And I had a friend who had $10. He split it and he gave me $5. So 26th of November, I left this country, 23 years old, $5 in my pocket, not knowing anybody there, and then landed in Schiphol Airport without a passport, without a visa. And November 27th of 2022 made me 27 years in the Netherlands.
Wow.
You know, this is a country that did not invite me, did not send for me, wasn't expecting me. They took me in at the airport, processed me into the asylum procedure, gave me a house, gave me clothes 2 days after I arrived, gave me everything and started paying me on a weekly basis. Now, the day I arrived Schiphol Airport, on our way to the processing center, we passed through a dual carriageway between Amsterdam and Rotterdam.
Yeah.
We passed through a dual carriageway that was 4 lanes,
Yeah.
2 on one side and 2 on the other side.
Yeah.
You know, as I speak to you now, my car is parked at the airport, at Schiphol Airport, the same airport I arrived from. 27 years after, driving to the airport just 2 weeks ago, we have 14 lanes on that same road that was 4 lanes before, 7 on this side and 7 on that side. So I saw that growth. I saw that metamorphosis. I saw in 27 years a highway, I'm just giving you an instance, a highway growing from just 2 lanes there and 2 lanes there to becoming 7 lanes there, 7 lanes here. You see, the European advancement is not rocket science. Now, for the 26 out of 27 years I've lived, and I live in Rotterdam. Rotterdam, when I got into the country, was the largest seaport in the whole world. But now it has gone to number 4 in the world due to other countries trying to expand their port. And, you know, Rotterdam today is the most busiest seaport in the world. There is no cargo, no commodity carrying vessel that do not transit in the city of Rotterdam. And the port is owned by the Rotterdam municipality, not even the country. And it is accruing so much taxes, you know, down to the municipality and also to the country. Today, Rotterdam has the largest concentration of tank farms in the world, and yet they do not produce crude oil. Now, in Rotterdam, the topography of Rotterdam, it's very similar to what we have here in Delta State. And on top of that, we have a huge disadvantage in the Netherlands because we are 5 meters below sea level. So the flooding that happened here in some areas of this country, just I think September, October last year, if that flooding had taken place in the city of Rotterdam or the Netherlands, we would have all been consumed. Now, today, Rotterdam is the only city where they've been able to deal with the issue of flooding by building sophisticated dikes. And then on top of that, in the city of Rotterdam, they've succeeded in building a sea protecting gates that rises with the sea level. So if the water level goes up, the gate rises up with the water level. And with that gate, we can control the amount and quantity of water that we want to allow to come into our city. So all of these that I've explained, it's actually what I've seen in my 27 years. And then when I look back to Delta State, or indeed the whole of the Niger Delta region, yesterday, 2 days ago, I was in Baramatu Kingdom.
Yeah.
You know, on our way going by speedboat, we passed a lot of oil warheads. We passed a lot of flow stations. We passed a lot of manifolds. And then when we got to the community, the people told us that they do not have the basic need of life, which is clean water to drink. And yet I was told that the current deputy governor is from that region. And then in 2009, I was the first person that actually brought Americans and Europeans during the movement for the emancipation of Niger Delta crisis. You know, I wanted the world to come and see and understand through the voices of those agitators what has led to young people taking to arms, telling the multinational oil companies that we do not want you anymore in this region, telling the government that we do not want you to process, extract crude oil from our region because we are not gaining anything from this processing. And then after that, in 2012, I brought some NGO people to come and inspect some of those cottage hospitals within the riverine areas that most of these so-called multinational companies have given to communities in order to deal with the issue of health in those areas, that they did not also put a proper sustainable plan on how to run the healthcare centers. You know, most of them are dilapidated. We wanted to see how we can talk to some hospitals in Europe so that when they are phasing out some equipment, we can get the equipment and bring it to these people, because we feel they truly and genuinely need them. Now, why did I choose the Southern Ijaw area of Ezetu? I chose there because Ezetu has 12 cluster communities. And what is significant about those 12 cluster communities is that they are oil-bearing communities hosting the Nigerian two deepest offshore drilling facilities, the Bonga oil field and the EA oil field. Combined capacity is 500,000 barrels of crude oil per day. And yet, 12 cluster communities around those ones, that area, do not have the same potable clean water. And this is a region that had the opportunity to produce a president for 6 years, you know? So it is sad. So every day when I wake up in Rotterdam and I see this development, I see this, I see a government that is appreciating its citizens, giving its citizens what it needs. As I sit here with you today, I have an insurance premium cover, and I pay 131 euros on a monthly basis. Now, it is comprehensively covered, meaning if I drop here and nobody can take care of me here, my insurance cover can send, my insurance company can send an ambulance helicopter from Amsterdam to come and pick me up. I don't need to know the Minister of Health. I don't need to pick phone to call anybody. I have 4 sons now. My oldest son is 22 years old. My second one is 19. The very moment they became 18, the system automatically generated a letter that was sent to them, telling them that if you, from now you are now an adult, you can live on your own. If you choose to move out of your parents' house, we will pay you 1,800 euros on a monthly basis, which will cover your housing, cover your education, your tuition, cover your health insurance, and still give you space to save for your yearly summer vacation. So these are some of the things that I've seen. And this country, as I tell you, is the most densely populated country in Europe, small size, with a population of about 17 million people, and yet do not have the resources that we have. So I had the opportunity to now see the double standard, and that became a motivation for me that we need to at least give to our people the basic need that is required for them to live a happy life. Yeah,
because why I asked that very question was, if you look at it, you said it all, the relative comfort you experience there in Netherlands, but rather you come here, live that comfort, and want to impact and serve the people. Because that's why I haven't asked the question at first. So what's your motivating drive to say, well, I've seen the comfort there. I can as well live with the comfort there. But I have a deep passion to serve. So what's really motivating you?
Well, you know, when I chronicled my life, at a point in my life, with all the things that have happened to me, like I told you, first person to come and visit the men camp, we did 4 hours on the speedboat. And then in 2015, that same Bonga oil field area communities that we visited on our way back, we were kidnapped. 3 Dutch people were with me, a man and 2 men and 1 lady were kidnapped, you know, by some of the group, and that actually brought an end to that project. And then also I have also brought some members of the Dutch Parliament to this country.
Now that I know through your NGO.
Yes, Hope for Niger Delta campaign. Yes, because what I try to do, because what most Europeans do is to sit behind their computer, do research, and then evaluate how the oil multinational companies are operating here, and try to see from people's articles and reports
without having a first-hand.
without having a first-hand information. So I wanted to change that narrative, because I also strongly believe that what you see is far much impactful than what you read. You know, so I brought them to see the consequences of gas flare on our people. You know, as a child growing up, whenever we saw gas flare, then we used to thank the multinational oil companies, because where there is no light, the gas flare became a light for us. And then our mothers were actually using the heat from gas flare, particularly those ones that are very that are burning very close to the ground, you know, to dry our cassava, to dry our fishes. But little did we know that they were constituting health hazard for us, you know. So I brought them to see for themselves what the impact of gas flare is. So we went to Obe in Orion community in Edo State, and then we went to Abulema in Rivers State to see oil spills, the impact of oil spill on our waters. And then when we got back, they became touched. They summoned Shell to a parliamentary hearing. I was invited to speak in that parliamentary hearing. And after I spoke, 11 days after, the Dutch police raided my house, 35 of them, to arrest me. You know, so, and then they threw all sort of charges against me, and gradually they started dropping those charges, because I was not really perturbed. And then, of course, my mother that I told you, that made all those sacrifices for me to become who I am today, in 2007 in Benin City, she was assassinated. She was strangled to death. So my father died here in Ughelli, and my mother is dead, so I don't have both parents. Now, at the point, I was asking myself, who are you, and how did you survive all of this? How did you come this far? And then something started telling me that, no, this was not just a journey for me to live and thank myself and thank God for taking me out of this, difficult and poverty-stricken environment. So I started realizing that there was a purpose to my leaving the country. So, and then I started engaging at the very highest European level. I started, you know, getting opportunities to address the Dutch, the European Parliament. I am a yearly guest speaker at the United Nations Forum on Minority Issues, where I bring some minority cases from like the Ogoni cases and some oil-bearing community cases. So I started actively being part of that. So some kind of diplomacy started taking place. And then in the course of that, I started meeting some wonderful Europeans, wonderful Dutch people who really, really understand the problems and want to offer solutions. So most of them were approaching me, what can we do? So I started bringing those opportunities to friends that I know that are in government. And so for most of them, once it does not really bring direct financial benefit to them, they're not interested. So when I did all of that, I went back, I closed the door, and then at a point I just decided that no, it is time. I wouldn't allow these opportunities to go, because right in front of me, opportunities are being taken by Ghana. Like Ghana as a country has a lot of educational exchange programs with not just the Netherlands, but also very many European countries, particularly the Scandinavian countries. And then also a lot of business activities are taking place. The Dutch, for instance, have surpassed the United States as Nigeria's biggest, largest trading partner. And 95% of that trade is from crude oil and gas. And then when those tankers load those commodities out of the country, they return back to the country empty. You know, we cannot afford to live like that. And then I looked at my states. I mean, currently the largest producer of crude oil has the highest concentration of gas, you know, and the only state in the country that has 4 under-functioning seaports, you know, 165 square kilometers of coastline. I went to see Chief Ibori yesterday. We drove through the Ethiop River. The Ethiop River is currently Africa's deepest inland waterway. We're not taking advantage of that. You know, we can even create a tourism hub out of it, because those who serve local and the rest can use it. People can fly in from Brazil, Latin America, and boost the economic activities within those people who hawk and sell around that supply roundabout. We are the state that is the gateway to the south-south and the southeast. So when you look at all of that, you begin to see that God has given us everything we need.
Okay, I'll plead with you to hold on. We need to go on a break now.
Yes.
And when we come back, we'll continue with the discussion and now center it more on what we now need to do as a people and what you intend to do differently from what you're now seeing, and the problems associated with Delta State and the need for development. But I'll plead with you to hold on. Let's go on a break, and when we come back, we'll continue with our discussion. And indeed, like I said, it's Delta 2023, a time to serve. Well, I need to welcome you back, and we're still remaining with the big story for today. We're talking about the issue of the road to Delta 2023, knowing that the elections will be held on the 11th day of March of 2023, but a need and a time to serve. And that's why we're having this discussion. And also a man that truly feels and have that passion to serve Delta State and also to change the narrative. And I'm talking of no other person but our guest, like I stated earlier, Comrade Sunny Ofehe, helping out with the discussion. He's the governorship candidate of the Young Progressives Party right here in Delta State for the 2023 Delta State elections. Well, yeah, you've extensively given us a breakdown of who you are and what drove your passion for your desire to serve these states, and which was quite indeed elaborate, and the pain you feel, especially staying in another land and seeing how they've really improved over the years and coming to your own very state and little or nothing to show for. Well, I know you talked extensively about this during the unveiling of your running mate, Mrs. Eloho Edafe. That should be October 26th or 27th of last year. I know you talked extensively about it. But I want us now to break it down bit by bit, deeply knowing that you know the challenges Delta State is facing, but what you intend to do differently. And one part I want us to start first with is the issue of investment in the state, which is generally not there. I could still remember the visit you had with the Olu of Warri just on Monday. You talked about a great deal of bringing foreign direct investment into the country. So I really want us to see how you intend to accomplish that and why we need to have more direct investment, judging that most multinationals that have businesses here, their offices are no more here.
Well, it's a very big problem.
Yes.
You know, I will sum it up like this. If Delta State was to be run as a business, it should have gone bankrupt by now, completely no longer existing. However, it's a state that is made up of people, and the treasury has been depleted. The state is currently the second. The state currently has this reputation of being the second state in this country with the highest debt profile. So therefore, anybody who will inherit the governorship position from May 29 will have a very big problem. We currently face with high inflation, and we should not also forget that there's a current international global economic meltdown that is caused by this war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, and also even though the crude oil price has gone up about averagely $130 per barrel on the international market, Nigeria is the only OPEC country that is not actually making profit from it, because we have not been able to meet our OPEC quota. You know, our quota is supposed to be something a little bit above the 3 million barrels of crude oil per day, but currently we struggle to even produce 1.7 million barrels per day. And every state, particularly the oil-bearing states, are actually relying on the federal account allocation that comes from Abuja, and the 13% derivation that also comes from Abuja. Now, we also see what is happening now with the Nigerian currency, that is at a very incredible, has dropped so badly.
Almost 750.
Yes, 750 naira to the dollar, thereabout. So anybody who comes into government wanting to rely on the same way of getting revenue, I mean, there is nothing you can internally generate anymore. I feel very sorry for our poor mothers, our young boys, our keke riders who are being extorted. I see it as extortion in the name of using them to generate your internal revenue. As a governor in this state, those are the first things I will scrap, because you do not, you cannot, impose unnecessary tasks on people who have chosen not to do crime and just hustle by selling waters, selling petty things on the street, and then you extort them because you think you can use them to boost to run your budget. Now, what we need now, even as a country, not even as a state alone, is foreign direct investments. And in foreign direct investments, you have to bring investors down to the country. You have to look at ways with which you can improve your infrastructure. When I mean improve infrastructure, it's not to bring foreign direct investment to do your road construction and all of that. No, you have to bring them in to revamp your decaying infrastructure. As a young man growing up here, we used to admire Agbaroto because of Super Brew, the Hebrew dynasty, created a lot of jobs within this community. I had friends who worked in Super Brew. I passed through Bitter Glass, then it was called Delta Glass. These companies were actually helping. Even university students could get vacation jobs in these places. They're no longer there. Asaba Textile Mill, they all gone. I met a Dutch guy who told me he was very young when the father was working at the Asaba Textile Mill. He was even the one in Europe who reminded me that Asaba Textile Mill Football Club had 3 players in the then Nigerian Green Eagles, that they were renowned in the whole country. Now, for you to bring the foreign direct investment to this country, it's going to be very difficult, because if you Google now on every Western country's website, the first thing you see are red alerts, even Abuja. Whenever I come to this country, I use Air France. It will shock you that Air France do normally transit in N'Djamena, capital of Chad, before getting to Abuja, or the other way around. In one of my trips, the airporter came to me and she told me, "Hey, Mr. Ofehe, well, have a nice trip to Abuja." I said, "Why?" I said, "Because by aviation standard, you're supposed to disembark. As a crew, you're supposed to disembark at your last destination." She said, "No, our management have told us that we should be sleeping in N'Djamena and not Abuja, because N'Djamena is safer than Abuja." So we all know what is happening in Chad. So it has come to that level where even Abuja is considered very safe. Anytime I come into this country, I try to bring in white people. Why do I bring them in? I bring them in so that they can come and see the passion that drives our people, so that they can see how loving, how kind, how humane our people can be, so that when we go back, they can become that voice that will at least attack those voices that are saying Nigeria is not a safe place. Recent reports have put Nigeria as the second most unsafe country in the whole world after Iraq, which therefore means that Afghanistan is even more safer than our country. So with that, you cannot bring in investments. And our credit rating has gone so low that we cannot even do international borrowing, except when we go to China and cut corners. Now, who do you need to bring those investments? Someone who is knowledgeable, someone who is exposed, someone who has a relationship with these people, someone who has been outspoken, someone who has the credibility to tell the investors that as the governor of Delta State, you will come in here, help boost my economy. I will secure your investment. I will guarantee returns on your investment. It's going to be a win-win situation. I'm going to open a direct line. So therefore, in my manifesto, I have also decided that the same Rotterdam that is critical to our economic advancement in this country will have a Delta State liaison office that will fully function with staff. And how are we going to finance this? We're going to finance this from any investments that come in. A certain percentage will be kept aside to run that office. Now, let me tell you one thing. Another problem that we have in Nigeria, for those people who may be watching me and hearing me now, they will agree with me. The challenge we have, even when you have your money and you want to buy anything from Europe and bring it down here, you have two problems. You have your money, but you do not have a system that can make you get the hard currency and take it there. Some time ago, the airline companies American, British Airways, Air France, Lufthansa, they were threatening to stop operation in Nigeria because they had just $500 million in the CBN that CBN could not remit to their various European accounts. So that is how bad our level have become, that even those who have been doing business over the years are not threatening to even leave us. So you need a leader who can come to the table, and use the little we have now to negotiate for what we need. And then on top of that, there is also need for us to look at our historical potential. Like I told the Olo of Wari, in him I have seen a very young, vibrant, intelligent, knowledgeable, exposed young man. And when you look at the monarchy system in our states today, we have very vibrant young people, dynamic. A few months ago, I hosted the Ofehe of Agbaroto in Rotterdam. I brought him to certain meetings to engage. He was intellectually sound. He understood the problems of his people. He laid them bare. You need to have a leader who can create this platform for some of these our traditional rulers to go out there. I told the press, I told the Olo of Wari, in July, 1st of July, the world will be celebrating 160 years of abolition of slave trade. And just in December here, the Prime Minister of the Netherlands officially came out and apologized for the role the Dutch government played in slave trade. And from my little understanding of history, after the Portuguese came to the Wari Kingdom, it was the Dutch that came. They made so much money from there. And now the Dutch government has set aside $212 million, to invest in education in areas where they actually played a role in the slave trade. And now nobody is talking about that. Nobody is talking about how we can tap from that. And then look at COP27 that just took place in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. For the first time, the Western countries have come together that we must financially support the third world countries and see how we can, bring the necessary funds that can mitigate against all of the climate change problems that we have. We don't have a leadership that is even ready to tap into those possibilities. Let us look at the Sustainable Development Goal project, for instance. As a governor in this state, I will ensure that under the Social Development Goal project, in the area of education, my riverine teachers will be paid from funds that are available, begging to be tapped within the EU system and within the United Nations system. Most of our leaders do not have a clue as to how they can take advantage of all of this. So when I look at the people on the ballot and I look at where we are today as a state and as a people with the resources that we have, I think I am the most qualified when it comes to every externally generated revenue that you need to tap into to be able to cushion these problems of unemployment from our young people, and there are also funds that are available that can take most of our boys to further their education abroad. Look at you journalists, for instance. How protected are you? Why do you think that most European journalists can put on their microphone, put on and go to war-torn countries to cover those places? It is because they are covered by insurance. There are international insurance policies that has to cover some of your operations. Some of you are not even protected by the institution you represent. If you write an article that offends a politician, he picks you up, he deals with you the way he wants. We all need to create these safety nets around institutions, strengthen our institution. And then lastly, I have spent almost 30 years within the civil society space. Yeah. And I understand the significance of civil society in any day-to-day governance in any part of the world. And the Europeans are clearly tapping into all of this. And that is why they have made civil society the fourth arm of their government. Because with civil society, you can check your policies, check how it is affecting your people on the ground. So as a governor, that is one area also I want to set aside funds for. But in order to practically deal with the poverty that has affected our people, I will be the first governor to give 1 million, I repeat, 1 million Deltans social benefits. Wow. Because I've clearly studied the Dutch social benefits system, and I know it can also be applied in this country. 1 million Delta citizens under my leadership will have a minimum of 10,000 naira. And how are we going to divide? How are we going to select this 1 million people? We're going to look at our mothers. We're going to look at our widows. We're going to look at our physically challenged people. We're going to look at those who are young but do not have the opportunities. 2 weeks ago, I was in the Czech Republic. I had the privilege to speak to the Czech Football Federation. Yeah,
because I was almost going there knowing that sport is also a vocal point to deal with youth restiveness and all of that. Yes. And I know you're really close to that, because I also know you signed a deal or sealed a deal that will bring most of their friendlies down to Nigeria. Yes. So I was almost going to the issue of sport and how you intend to channel and improve sport as a means of dealing with youth restiveness and underemployment. I think the recent sport festival, I think Delta State came first, right? Yes. Well, it clearly shows to you that we have abundant talent within our young people. Even football. Currently Nigeria ranked highest in under 17 FIFA ranking, we're the number one. In 1991, Fanny Amo single-handedly won the World Cup with majority of those boys coming from Delta State. Now, a lot of our boys have this potential to go out there and play. Look at Osimhen. He's shining now in Italy. I've been in Napoli, where I eat free pizza, free everything, because I just mentioned to them that Osimhen is my brother. So now, I was looking at it, and I was looking at the possibilities in Europe. Look, when the Dutch female national team took us out in that World Cup, in the female under 21, I think, World Cup, our women were talented. On individual level, the Dutch were no match. But the difference, it was a 2-0. They defeated us 2-0. The difference between the both teams was in administration and organization. Anytime they had a chance in front of goal, they knew how to move. They scored. Why? Because in the Netherlands, every 10-kilometer radius has a football association that has a football pitch. I've discussed with the Dutch Football Federation that as a governor, I will want to replicate that and ensure that we have that. And it is very cheap. It's not even expensive. And they've agreed that they will also support any project that can take the boys, concentrate them in one place to give out football skills. Now, I was in Czech Republic. I had a discussion with the Czech Football Federation, the president and the vice president, and I told them that we have a state with so much potential, football potential, and that I will want the Czech underage competition to play with us, so that we can have an opportunity to bring our talents before the world and show them. And they've agreed. They offered me the under 16, under 17, under 19, under 21, and under 23. But I decided to stay with the under 17 and under 21. So what we're going to do is they will come here and play against our Delta selected side,
and then we will go to Prague and play them. And while they're in Prague, if they're good enough for the scouts that we will bring in, then from there they can hit their professional career. Because in this way, you will be able to sort of put people whose skills and potential lies in sport to pursue their career from there. And those who want to go to school, pursue their career from there. And also invest in general education, vocational training. Like most of us who carry degrees, who went to school, when they come to Europe, they are the people who suffer more. Those who did hairdressing, who did who worked in hairdressing salon, pedicure, manicure, and barbing, are actually the ones who are making it in Europe. To make your hair as a woman in Europe, the minimum amount is 70 euros. So they sit down at home, they don't pay office space, they don't do anything. People come to them while they are making your hair, making 70 euros. They're also cooking for their family. They also leave you and run to go pick the kids from school. You know, so it is time now for us to also encourage people to look into how it is not just going to be university. Even when you have that, try to get some things that you can do with your hands. Now, I will shock you with this one. Research have just shown that in 2025, banana will go extinct. Banana. If you look at the banana we even sell in Nigeria today, they're gradually shrinking. You know, it will go extinct. In Europe, the land space that is remaining for them for farming has reduced to just 15%. So which therefore means that 85% has been occupied. So there is problem in Europe. And Africa still has about 75% land space to do agriculture. I have never seen the level of agriculture that I've seen in Europe. I've never seen it in any part of this country. We don't do preservation. When it is season for cassava, we go for it. When it is finished, we go for the next one that the season is there. In Europe, today, the Netherlands is the largest exporter of dairy products, you know, and also for fruits and vegetables. They're the largest supplier in Europe, in the world.
And that can be replicated.
And they do not even plant. So bananas come from Chile, apple and the rest come from Argentina. All they just do is when they come, they repackage them into grams, cellophane, and then they put tags on them, stickers on them, meeting the supermarket's conditions, and then they spread it all along Europe. I worked 5 years killing cows. I worked in a butcher house where we kill cow. The minimum cow my company was killing on a daily basis was 400, between 400 and 500 on a daily basis, because the demand for meat is so high. They grow a full cow to this level in just 6 months. So these are technological advancement, and we don't see that here. We have the land space, and this is what I'm going to do. Invest hugely in agriculture. Encourage investors to come in agriculture. I've been approached by a company who told me that if you can give us a land space in your states, we will bring in the technology to produce massive amount of banana for export. And we will come in with the European financing. All the foreign direct investment that I will bring into this country will not require government financing. The only thing we will do is to give a certain condition that can enable them to start the process. There are European fundings that are available for everything that you want to do. And then when you look at the area of marine, what are we doing?
Well, I'll plead with you to hold on, because it's so interesting knowing what you do. But I need to plead with you because we need to go on a break and, well, get some commercials. You know how important that is. But when I come back, I really want you to really help us elaborate issues that concerns the environment, which you also there, judging that that's also a major problem in Delta State. And we're talking about oil spills and all of that. But let's go on a break and continue more of discussion. And to know, like I said, it's Delta 2023, time to serve. And what better way to kickstart all of these than have a first-hand knowledge of someone that really wants to change the narrative. Let's go on a break. Well, we'll still continue with our discussion and still looking at the road to Delta 2023. Well, a time to serve is what we're having, and indeed we're having a lovely guest. And he's the governorship candidate of the Young Progressive Party. I'm talking of no other person but Comrade Sunny Ofehe, helping out to really let us understand the problems that's associated with the development in Delta State and how he intends to change the narrative and do something differently from how it is. We'll see how we can take some calls later, but for now, let's continue with the discussion to truly deepen our views and also his wish for a better Delta. Before we went on the break, we talked greatly about the areas of education and the economy, which is also paramount in ensuring that Delta State attain the height it should naturally be. But I want us to remain with another critical issue. And we're talking about the issue of oil theft and how it seems to also, talking about also oil spill and how it affects the environment and also affect Delta State. That seems to be more of a riverine area, and more of our mothers and fathers rely on aquatic life for survival. Like I said, I can still remember an interview you did with the Voice of Nigeria, our sister station, a couple of months back. And you talked extensively about the issue of oil theft and how many multinationals talk about huge sums of money, 100,000 barrels per day lost to oil theft. But that alone is not what I want us to also dwell on. But how do you also intend to deal with the issue of oil spillage, judging that greater percentage of what you've done, not just locally but internationally, has been in the issue of degradation of the environment? So how really important it is for us to also have the issue of modular refineries to dealing with all of these problems? So how do you intend to solve that? Because mostly Deltans in the riverine area will be truly interested to see how their livelihood, their means of livelihood will come back, and then being able to deal with that.
Okay. Well, it's an issue that I have really spoke about on several international fora.
Okay.
And it is very, very sad that where we are today as an oil producing country and the relationship we have with our multinational oil companies do not really reflect on the ground what is supposed to benefit the people. History and our fathers told us then that in 1958, when the first crude oil was extracted from our soil, the oil multinational companies promised our fathers then, I wasn't born then, that the black gold that is underneath our soil and waters, once we give them the chance to extract and sell, they will transform our communities to become Rome, Paris, France, New York, and Amsterdam. And 60 years down the lane, what we see is devastation of our environment, broken relationship between the people and the multinational oil companies. And then we must look now at what has really led to all of this. First and foremost, the oil multinational companies are operating in our area with impunity. They are not conforming to basic minimum internationally set standards of operation. If you look at the Niger Delta region, we have an average of about 6,000 kilometers of pipelines crisscrossing all of the Niger Delta region, which means if you stretch it, it's a distance from here to Amsterdam, where I fly from. It's about 6,000 kilometers in distance. Now, they are not supposed to even operate above the ground. They're supposed to be buried within the ground, underneath the ground. And even those that run in the water are also supposed to be buried deep underneath the water. That is one. And then most of our pipelines are old. They've not been replaced. Some of the pipelines that are still running around the Niger Delta region are as old as 30 years, and over time, with rain, with sun, with different kind of temperature, oxidization takes place, and then it leads to natural leakages, which can then lead to oil spill. One of my daddy, who happened to be the Nigerian ambassador to Italy, who comes from Delta State, once told me and some of the Italian people in a conference that a woman once saw oil spill when he was young, once saw oil spill on the water, and it was shining. And the woman was amazed at the beauty at the night. She was fishing. And then she took her lantern and was walking towards the shining thing that she saw in water. Little did she know that it was crude oil, and she got burnt, and she died in the process. And now we've seen how most of our people run into pipelines that are leaking or pipelines that have been vandalized, and then they start to scoop the crude oil from those pipelines, and then gradually the number of people start increasing, and they come with buckets, and then the buckets start hitting each other. There is a spark, and then it goes into flame, and then like the JC disaster some years ago,
infamous,
you know, it is also very sad. Now, the oil multinational companies have been telling the world that they're losing 100,000 barrels of crude oil per day, which is running into billions of dollars annual loss. And then when you look at that quantity and the amount in question, you begin to ask yourself, can our boys really have the capacity to steal such quantities of crude oil? The answer is no. You know, when you have a situation with, it will shock you that among OPEC member countries, Nigeria is the only country that do not have a metering system. We do not know how much of crude oil we produce. We leave it in the hands of the multinational oil companies to report to us on a daily basis that this is the amount they've taken, and which is sad. Now, if you talk about oil theft and you really losing that amount of oil theft, we have told them on the international platforms that the simple solution to dealing with such situation is for you to do coloration of your crude. In Europe, they color their crude. If there is an oil spill on the North Sea, when you look at the color from afar, you can easily identify the country that oil spill is from. For instance, if it's red, you can say it's coming from Norway. So with that, you can extract that coloration out before you give to the person or the country or the company that you are supplying. That's a simple way you can deal with it. So you can separate stolen crude from genuine crude. We hear this word of OPEC and off OPEC crude and all of that. Now, I still believe that most of the atrocities in all of these areas are actually institutional theft, you know, and some of the commodities traders are also part of our problems. You know, when you have 6,000 kilometers of pipeline, how would somebody know?
Monitor.
How would somebody know which of the pipe is actually, because the whole 6,000 will not run crude at the same time. So how will somebody identify where to go and hack, and then you see crude? It shows. And then with modern technology, even if there is a leakage in a pipe, you can easily identify such leakage from a command and control center, you know, with modern technology. And now you do not even need manpower. Drones have the capability to survey your pipelines. Now, we can say that we are not advanced as a country to use drones because we can use it to empower some of our community people and use it to create jobs in the form of pipeline surveillance contracts, like the one that has been given to Tom Polo. Now, and then on top of that, you still see these multinational oil companies doing a lot of business in our area, making so much profit. And then at the end, they have systematically moved their corporate headquarters out of this place, claiming insecurity, and now put their headquarters somewhere outside of our region, you know, paying corporate taxes in those places. As a governor in the next dispensation, I'm going to sit with the international multinational companies, not even at the Nigerian level, at the highest level of their decision-making body. I'm going to tell them there is need for them to bring back their corporate headquarters down to this place. We're not going to force them. As a government, we're going to look at all of those reasons that have made them shift their corporate headquarters. Security is one of the concerns. So we're going to ensure that we educate our people on the benefit of having them come back. When I was young, we used to have Ejeba, we used to have Oguno. You know, kids who were living there were considered Ajebotas, you know, but they are gone. Even the NNPC quarters or complex that we had, they're all gone. And it's a shame. Warri used to be the viable commercial hub, you know, that was actually bringing into our state not just income, not just revenue, but also pride and prestige. But look at Warri today. Warri is choked. Warri is polluted. You know, I was passing there a few days ago. I saw a lot of marine activities scattered. You know, we can make these states compete with Rotterdam when it comes to the issue of tank farms. There is so much money to be made there. We can liaise with the federal government on the need for us to be stakeholders in the 4 seaports that we have in this place. We can discuss with the international community. It will shock you that we only still extract petrol, diesel, and kerosene from our crude. But, you know, science have gone far. There are many other byproducts that is of huge demand. Russia, yes. Russia is making so much from those byproducts. So there is need for us as a state to see how we can interface with the federal government and let them understand the need for us to also benefit from all of these crude oil that we have in our area. And those are the added value that I am bringing to the table in the next dispensation. I think as Deltans, it is time for us to say, no, this shouldn't be politics as usual. This should be a time of sober reflection. This should be a time for us to look at our state. We have the capacity as a state. Like I told Chief Ibori yesterday, I told you Oluofori a few days ago, I have the capacity to attract in foreign direct investment that we just talked about, a minimum of $26 billion, not million, $billion in revenue. And when that comes in, that will boost our decaying companies, boost our agricultural sector, and create jobs and build the middle class. You don't develop, you cannot economically advance if you don't build the middle class. It is non-existent in Delta State. It is sad. Now, look at the flooding. As part of the environmental issue. The flooding happened. A lot of people were displaced. I visited some IDP camps. And even the standards in the IDP camps were terrible. I saw Red Cross there. You know, it's not everything you need to start chasing. You know, it did not even conform to Red Cross basic minimum standards. And yet they had their staff there. The government did not do anything. You know, under international law, IDPs must be given adequate accommodation, access to healthcare. Most of them were in primary schools, living with reptiles, scorpions and snakes. These are our citizens. You know, people were giving birth. The camp that I went to in Isoko, a lady gave birth in that place, locally, oil producing states. So now the question is, how did we solve the problem now? We didn't do anything. We just waited for the water to naturally recede back to the sea. So September, October is coming, and the waters are giving signs. If you don't allow water to flow, water will come back at you. The Dutch said, God created the world, but we made Holland, because they took land out of water to make what we currently see as the Netherlands. You know, so now what will happen? From the federal level, from the state level, from the local government level, there is no sustainable plan on how to deal with it in the coming September, October of 2023. I've been discussing with some Dutch companies. They're the best civil engineers in the world. I've been discussing, and there are World Bank funds available to deal with those challenges. You just need to have your blueprint. You need to present it to the right appropriate authorities, you know, to help you to deal with this problem, because it is a global problem. And then you happen to be a victim of that global problem. And as a state, we do not have what it takes to deal with these issues of flooding. So we must ensure, look at Asaba. It is a shame that when rain falls in Asaba, very close to the River Niger, we do not have a proper drainage system that can guide all of those flooding into the River Niger. It's a shame. And even the River Niger, and most of our, what is the reason for the flooding? The reason for the flooding is because most of our waterways are not dredged.
Okay, now a quick one because of time, before we really let you go, knowing how really busy you are. Now, Delta State, like you said earlier, business climate seems to have died here. And one of the greatest challenges seems to be that of security. Insecurity seems to, yeah, we do know it's a national issue. But Delta State, if we want to see ourselves as really developed and different from how it is. Now, how would you deal with the issue of, not just, you've talked about youth restiveness, which is another major way of dealing with the issue of insecurity when you get them fully engaged. But when it comes to insecurity, how are you going to make Delta State more secure to really help with all of these plans you've stated out in bringing big multinationals back to the land? How would you make Delta State more secure?
We must first of all secure our borders. When you come in from Port Harcourt, Bayelsa, we must secure those Patani axes. We must secure when you come in from Anambra State through the River Niger into Asaba. We must secure that place. And when you come in from Benin, Edo State, we must secure that place. We are blessed in terms of how we can deal with the issue of the security. During the crisis in France, when these homegrown terrorists were killing people there, what did the French do? They just mounted a vehicle at the border entry from Belgium. So once in a while, they divert all vehicles to go through a path. And then the vehicle is there unmanned. Nobody's there with the vehicle. But it has the capacity to x-ray every vehicle, to even identify a pistol, a firearm. There are modern technologies today that if you put a vehicle in those places that I'm talking about today, 3 kilometers away from the location of vehicles, if you pull a trigger, it will not answer you. This is where we are in the 21st century in terms of security. How do you see a situation where people kidnap people, they use mobile phone to call for ransom, they collect cash in ransom, they have just given you everything for you to pick them within 24 hours. As a governor of this state, we will bring in sophisticated 21st century technology security equipment. We will man our borders. We will monitor vehicles that go in and out. We will put them, we will have a command and control center. We will place CCTV cameras in strategic places. We will advance our modern highways. We will, every 20 kilometers, we will endeavor to bring in investment that will create mega filling stations with flyovers, you know, and those mega filling stations will boost business. They will have restaurants. 2-3 kilometers away from those places, we will have lighting system that will be powered by energy that will be powered by solar. And then we will recruit men with motorcycles, dress them, even if we don't get the license for them to carry firearms, but they will be moving around our streets. They will create this, you know, friendly environment of safety, you know, and then we will deurbanize our urban cities like Warri, Asaba, and all that. We will create satellite towns. They are all feasible. I've lived in a society that have shown me that with patriotism, with the political will, and with the right attitude, with zero tolerance for corruption, you can achieve all these goals. You can be what you think, particularly when it has to do with what will affect the lives of the ordinary people positively. And when we begin to float on this level, then the prayers that we're saying today, the Christians within us, the Muslims within us, God will begin to answer so that we can achieve that collective goal and make our state great again.
We'll love to talk more and more, seeing how really robust your plans, and not just robust, but achievable they are. But time is not a friend. We've really exhausted our time. We're talking for almost an hour and a half, and we need to also let you go as much as we also would want to leave the studios. But many thanks to another person. I'd rather not call Chief Minister, but the comrade still remains. Sunny Ofehe is the governorship candidate of the Young Progressive Party for the Delta State Governorship election, which is slated on the 11th. All we need to say right here is we wish you nothing but success.
Thank you so much.
And, well, a realization of this very dream. Thank you for coming, and thank you for speaking to Deltans. And I know they at home will truly appreciate all you said, and will be looking forward to see how that will be when it's that time. But all the same, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Well, for me, Michael Gobadia, it has been a full circle, and indeed an enjoyable one. But I'll plead with you to still remain with Quest, because Spot Shuffle will come next. But for me, Michael Gobadia, God willing, we'll see you tomorrow on another lovely edition of Quest Today. Bye for now.